This is a production of World Video Bible School. To God be the glory.
Thank you for still studying with us in the book of Genesis. It is a very beautiful book, a lot of history in it, of course, covers a lot of time. But it is a good book and has lots of good lessons in it for us. We are in chapter 31, just beginning with that chapter in this session. It's Jacob's flight from Laban, and then, of course, their treaty that follows later. The first 21 verses cover his Laban leaving the area. We start out right at the beginning of the chapter. Laban and his sons have much distress, it would appear, because of Jacob's increasing wealth, constantly getting wealthier and wealthier and wealthier. The thing that bothers me in it is that they are also getting wealthier at the same time. Not at the same pace, but they are also getting wealthier. And Laban has already recognized Jacob's worth to them, but still there's this unrest. And it seems that that's normal, isn't it, between people? That when people could be good friends when they're young, but if one then prospers and keeps, there seems to be a drift between them. The friendships sometimes go away, and that's so sad. But here we have this problem coming up, and it seems that these problems are always coming up in the Scripture one way or another, especially when we go into these Old Testament history sections. Well, in verse 3, we see that Jehovah says it's time to go home. He tells Jacob, now it is time to go back. It is time to go home. And so he calls out Rachel and Leah and says, it is time. Jehovah has said this. And then he reminds them, he says, now remember the deceit of your father. Now he's not just talking about the deceit at the beginning over the wives situation. No, he's talking about the deceit that has been there constantly, of the deceit that's going on all of the time. And so he reminds these two girls of what's happening. He reminds them that this is not a good place to be. We need to be on our own. We need to be away from him. And so, of course, they both agree and they obey, and they are going to leave then. Now, they do not tell Laban. They do not tell him. They just go. And I can see advantages to that, and I can see advantages to telling him. But I think probably this is the way it should have been done. And of course, providence was there. God was with him. And so it was handled in the way that it should have been. But they do not tell him. But we have a problem, do we not? Rachel. I just don't understand why she would steal Laban's idols. Why she would take them with him. She obviously is a familiar with Jehovah. There's just so much around her that would indicate that he is the only God, but she has this weakness for whatever reason. We're not told, so we don't dare really to assign any motives in this situation. But she wants these, and she takes them for whatever reason there is. Well, as you would expect back at this time, the flocks are a great distance apart from each other, and if one moves, then you have to go find them. But if they're fleeing, it's a different situation. So Laban doesn't hear about it for 3 days. He does not hear about it for 3 days. So then he takes and goes after them. He goes after them just immediately. But it takes him 7 days to overtake them. They've got a good lead on him. They're moving on, but it takes him 7 days to catch up. But, again now, Jehovah's involved. Jehovah's involved. He comes to Laban and warns him, do not take any harsh actions. Now, he's speaking directly to this man. He's telling him, you just ease off. You see, Laban's unhappy about this whole situation. In fact, he says that you should do neither good or bad. What does this mean? It's don't do anything. Don't do anything. You shouldn't try to dissuade him of going home. You should not try to persuade him to come back. You just don't do any of that. You let the situation go the way it is. And of course, we know that Jehovah is the one that is behind this. He wants now Jacob to go home. Well, we see in verses 25 through 28 that when Laban does catch up, he uses the hurt feelings. I am so hurt. We could have had parties. We could have had going aways. We could have given gifts. Just whatever you want to imagine. He's the hurt person. I wonder, was he really all that hurt, or is his deceit and his wanting things personally, his greed, is that involved? Again, we wonder about these things, but we don't want to sign anything that God doesn't tell us that is the problem. But anyway, he gives him the hurt feeling approach. But Laban also then tells him of Jehovah's command to him. Now, I cannot say good or bad. I cannot try to influence you one way or another. But he says, I want my gods back. Just think about that for a moment. He wants his gods back. If these were truly gods, what would he need to bring them back for? Wouldn't the gods take care of him? They're the ones that are supposed to take care of us. We're not supposed to have to transport and take care of and maintain the gods. No. But you see, his gods had been stolen from him. How do you steal a god if it's really God? Well, you can't. And so here, these mixed up feelings and thinkings of the people that are in idolatry that they have is very strange, a very strange thing to me. Well, Jacob, he comes right straight back at Laban, really, and he says, look, why am I leaving? It's because of your unrighteousness. Because you are an unrighteous person. That's the reason I left as I did. He just plainly tells him the truth on the situation. Well, he's going to search their belongings. He wants his idols back. And of course, Jacob says, go ahead. Go ahead. And let the person that has it, let them suffer any punishment. He doesn't realize who has it now. He doesn't realize it at all. He's an innocent person. He's reacting normally as an innocent person would in all of this. But you notice in verse 35 that idolatry has led now to lying. You know, she lies to her father so that she can hide those idols. It is so sad. Well, again, 36 to 42, Jacob's going to return just a little bit of Laban's ire and shows him very clearly, very plainly, look, father-in-law, you wouldn't be so near so wealthy if it was not for Jehovah through me. If it was not for Jehovah blessing me and therefore you would not be near so wealthy. And so he draws it out again. You're really better off. It's time for me to go home, but you're better off for my having been here. Now, what about all this time? What kind of time did he spend with him? Well, Jacob spends a total of 20 years in Padan Aram. 20 years he spends with Laban. That's a long time. What did he get out of it? He got 2 wives and he got livestock. And so really he is a very wealthy man. And again, we saw the problem that they had earlier because he was becoming so wealthy. Then we have the treaty here in chapter 31, verses 43 through 54. But notice in verse 43, he says, my. This is Laban now. He's talking, my, mine. His greed is showing, isn't it? Yes, my daughters, my children, mine. That's a very materialistic way of looking at things. Yes, I look at what I have and say mine, but I know in my heart that there's nothing that I have that the Lord did not give me, and it's truly His. That it is truly His, and that I have use of it. And that makes a difference in how you approach the things around you. It very definitely does. It makes a big difference on how you approach what you have and how it's going to be used. Well, the treaty. A stone is raised and then a heap of stones is put around. It's a monument, it's a memorial, it's a treaty stone. There are many names that we could use for it. Laban calls it a heap of testimony, and Jacob calls it a heap of witness. It's also called a watch station, a watch station. And what is it meaning then in the watch station? Well, that it means that neither one is to pass this stone or this marker, this watch station, this remembrance, to do harm to the other. They are not to pass this to do harm to the other. It's really just like saying here's a border between two countries, and we agree that this is the border, and we will not come over there, and we will not do you harm, and you will not come over here and do us harm. This is kind of the idea that we have here. Realizing that it's between these two people, not between nations, to draw a border or anything like that, but it's similar to that idea. And in verse 55, we see that Laban just has to turn around and go home in peace. Well, Jehovah really shortened him on this. It says, you cannot do what you want to do. You need to not do anything, either good or bad. Do not try to dissuade, do not try to persuade. Let things be as they are. And then after he doesn't find his idols to take home, what else can he do? He just has to go home in peace. Chapter 32. Moving on. The preparations for now meeting his brother. Now he's going home. Now remember, he didn't leave under the best of circumstances. There was even some deceit back there at that time, but this is 20 years later. This is 20 years later. Now, where has Esau been all this time? He's been back there at home. So what's happening to him? He is also becoming wealthy. He is also becoming wealthy at the same time. The Lord is taking care of him also. Well, Jacob sends messengers out to Esau and says, I am returning. But he wants his brother to understand, I'm not coming back home poor. I'm coming back wealthy. So there's not going to have to be a problem now in Esau's mind that here comes my brother now. He's been out for 20 years. He's come back and he's going to claim everything. Well, no need for that. He's got his own. No need for worrying about who gets what and about who's wealthy and who isn't. They both are. They're both wealthy. Now, as they come home, Jacob divides his people into two groups. One is, of course, to provide an escape for his family. And then in 9 through 12, we see Jacob approaching Jehovah, praying to him. He wants guidance and he wants help. Now, he's kind of a wise man here. What does he do? Jacob now sends a series of presents ahead to Esau. Why? Well, he's still just a little bit afraid of him. Now, he's told him now that he's a wealthy man, but he's going to have to now prove it to him. He's going to send these ahead to Esau. Well, in verses 24 to 30, rather, we have where Jacob wrestles with Jehovah's angel. A verse to read with this would be Hosea chapter 12, verses 3 through 5. Jacob prevails with this angel and, of course, is then blessed. He is blessed over this situation. Now, stop and think about this. He's wrestling with this angel. What kind of power does one angel have? What is he capable of doing? You look through the book of Revelation and you see the things that the angels are involved in there, and you look back through the book of Acts, you see things there, and you just to think even in the Old Testament history section of the things that angels did, what power they have. Well, obviously the angel let him prevail. Obviously he did. He's wanting to teach him something. He's wanting Jacob to learn from this experience. Excuse me, please. He wants him to learn. And he calls the place then Peniel, or the face of God. Jacob's name is now going to be changed. It's going to be changed to Israel. His name had meant, as you know, supplanter, supplanter. But now it means wrestler with God. That's what Israel means, a wrestler with God. And then the angel touches his hip, and the sinew of the thigh shrank. He is really dependent upon Jehovah now. He's got this heavy limp. He's got a physical problem. He is truly now really fully dependent upon Jehovah. In fact, the Jews do not eat of the sinew at all. Even from that time, those people did not eat of it anymore. Chapter 33, moving on. The first 15 verses we look at, we're talking about the reconciliation now with Esau. The reconciliation with Esau. Jacob now rearranges his family into the order in which he wants Esau to meet them. Notice, if you will, the order of least importance. The handmaidens and their children first, Leah and her children next, then Rachel and Joseph last. We still have that problem, do we not? Favoritism. That's a hard thing not to have in life. It really is. It's a hard thing not to have favorites within the family. We, of course, today, we don't have the multiple wives, so that problem is gone. But how about our children? Do sometimes we show favoritism one over another? We should not. We should love them both and do things with both and help them both, but not show favoritism one over the other, especially in times when there's going to be conflicts between them. Should not be. Should not be at all. But what happens then? Jacob leads all of them, leads them all. Esau is happy. Yes, Esau is happy to greet Jacob, and he offers to lead him the rest of the way home. He has come out, he has greeted him, he is welcoming him home. Let me come with you, let me lead you on home. It's a very good situation at this particular point. But Jacob says, now wait a minute, you have all of these men with you, and you travel so much faster than we. I have to take care of the livestock, I have to take care of the children. He's a good shepherd. He's a good father at this point. He's not going to push the children and the women and the livestock just to keep up with some warriors. They can obviously go faster, and why should they be slowed down? And we also know that what? Jehovah is with him on this trip. Is he going to protect him? Yes. Yes. We're going to see it later on that Jacob is going to have to make another move. And when he does, Jehovah brings fear upon the land and protects him. Jehovah will take care of him in all of this. Well, so Jacob then rejects the guard party. Jacob's returned now to the promised land. He settles in Canaan. We see this in verses 16 through 20. He buys a piece of land there at Shechem and pitches his tent there. In other words, he stays there for a while. And he calls the place, a mighty God is the God of Israel. Now we have problems. Chapter 34. Dear Sister Dinah has a problem. She is defiled by Shechem, the son of Hamor, who is a Hivite prince. But, strangely enough, this young man loves Dinah and wants her for his wife. Now, this is going to present a problem. I mean, he's already done something that's despicable, that's wrong, but now it's going to even create a bigger problem. We've got this family that's to stay a family and stay together, and is going to become a nation. What happens if we begin to intermarry? We've seen problems already with this. But what could happen here now? Well, we find that Shechem is going out to Israel with his father, and they want to become one people. Now, the Hivites are more numerous than this group. They are more numerous. So what is the normal situation then? If they start intermarrying, then the smaller group just gets dissolved into the bigger group. What would happen then? Where would the Jewish nation be? Where would all the providence of God be to bring in the Messiah? So we do really have a problem. Now, because Shechem had defiled Dinah, Simeon and Levi propose their deceitful plan and slay them. You notice these are her actual full brothers that are involved here. That is Simeon and Levi. Well, they say, now we will become one people with you. A little deceit here, isn't there? We will become one people with you, providing that you are all circumcised as we. We must be alike like this. You must become circumcised. That's the condition. Well, they are all then circumcised. This sounded good to Shechem. It sounded good to his father. When the men came out of the gates to meet them when they came home, it sounded good to all of these people as well. And so they are circumcised. Well, men who have been circumcised at a later age know that this is a very painful thing, and on the third day seems to be the time when it is the worst, if you will, of pain and incapacity that you have, that you're not able to do things or to really function at all. Well, they come in now and slay them on the third day. It's not bad enough that they do this, but then they go in and spoil. They go in and take whatever they want of anything, of people, of livestock, of things. They just go in and really just, if you were, ravage the whole land. Take everything that they want. Anything they want, they take at all. Jacob then has something to say to these two boys. He says, you have troubled me. You've given trouble to Israel. Yes, to the group. Not just to him personally, but they have troubled the whole group. You have brought trouble on me. You've troubled me. You've bothered this whole situation. This is all wrong. Well, they give an answer. Should this not be punished? This thing that they did, this should not happen at all in Israel. This should not be. This defiling should never have happened. They give their answer. But quite frankly, the last word on this is going to come in chapter 49 on Jacob's deathbed, when he then puts the blessings and the prophetic words to these people. We'll cover that when we get there. Chapter 35 now. Jehovah tells Jacob to go to Bethel and to make an altar there. Now, Bethel, house of God, is what the word means. Jacob understood what God was doing. He understood here. So what did he do? He left at Jehovah's command. Purify yourself, he told him. Build an altar and purge out all idols. Get rid of all of the idols. Well, now you just think about that. Rachel had some, didn't she? Rachel had some. And there were others around. And so they destroy the idols. But what I really like here is not only did they destroy them, but anything that had to do with it. The ornaments, the rings, the earrings, anything that would have to do with it, all of this was destroyed as well. This is a good purge of evil things from among them. And then, as I said before, here comes fear upon the area. Fear upon all the people around, so that Jacob can leave in peace. Oh yes, they could have become disturbed, and they could have banded together, and they could have attacked Israel, done great harm to them, if not even eliminated them. But Jehovah is involved in this. Jehovah is taking care of them. All right, verses 9 through 15 in chapter 35, we see the promise of Abraham and Isaac is repeated to Jacob again. And again he is called what? Israel. He is called Israel. And in verse 14 we see that he offered a drink offering. This is the first time now in Scripture that we have that. It's the first time that we have a drink offering. In verses 16 through 20, kind of a sad situation. A sad situation. We have Benjamin's born, but we have the death of Rachel involved. Benjamin is number 12. He is the 12th son. She wants to call him the son of my sorrow. It appears that she knows she's dying in this situation. This is the son of her sorrow. But Jacob will not have that. No, he does not want that name. He wants it to be Benjamin. He does not want it to be Benoni. He wants it to be Benjamin. That is the son of my right hand. He's proud of this son. He wants him. And so he changes the name. He will not have it as she wanted it. We see the posterity now of Jacob and Esau in verses 21 up through the first verse in chapter 37. First is the posterity of Jacob himself in verses 21 through 29. Here we go again. Another son now is going to give grief to Israel. Now, these are not children. These are grown men, and they're giving grief to their father. What happens? Reuben lays with Bilhah, Israel's concubine. Wrong. Completely wrong in any way you want to look at it. Adultery, incest, fornication, any way you want to look at it, it's wrong. It is absolutely wrong. In verses 23 through 26, we have the sons of Israel are listed according to their mother, and this is not according to the order of their birth. Jacob, or Israel now, returns to Isaac. And Isaac dies at 180 years of age. He did reach a good old age. And like I said, I wish I knew more of this man's life, the faith that he had, the strength that he had in times. But we don't have much of the story resting with him. The story really rests with ahead of him and behind him, Abraham and, of course, Jacob. All right, the posterity let's go into the history of Esau first. Esau moves. Esau moves to Mount Seir. Esau is Edom. The separation is because of what now? Their extensive wealth. See, what Jacob said to Esau was true. I'm coming home, but I am a wealthy man. I am a wealthy man. And so they have this great wealth. They are together. This naturally is going to cause a problem. Do we have this happening earlier? How about between Abram and Lot? Remember? They were growing until they were becoming wealthy and they were becoming great, and so they needed to separate. And this is the same thing that we have here. They needed to separate because of their extensive wealth. 9 through 19 are the sons and descendants of Esau. And remember, he'd been blessed by his father also. Verses 20 through 30 are the sons of Seir the Horite who inhabited Seir. And the word duke in your translation really is better chief. A chief, rather, as a duke as we think of it in later history, especially around England and in that area. But the idea of chief is better here. Some of these descendants even rise to the position of kings. Now this is for fulfillment of promises, isn't it? Yes, it is. Fulfillment of God's promises. So Jacob dwelt in the land of Canaan. The promise then made to Abraham is now complete here in Jacob. He dwells in the land. Now we move into the next major session, the fifth section of the book, the life of Joseph. And we see it from here really to the end of the book. The first part is his boyhood. It's important that we see some of the things that happens while he is a youth. It's important that we see these things because of what happens later. And especially how Joseph turns around and says to these brethren that all of these things happened in the way they happened, in the way that you did it, and the reactions here or the actions between us was God's purpose. God had used their evil and their evil doings to come out good. And incidentally, that's part of providence, is a very big part of providence. God can take anything and work it to the good result in the end. Does this then relieve the doer of his sin? No. No, 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 no. The guilt is still there because they did it on their own. But you see, God in providence will restrict how much influence evil has. There is a limit that God has set on what evil influences can be from individuals or nations or whatever. There is a limit. God takes care of that. And what is that doing? That is taking care of you, and it's taking care of me. God limits it. If not, where would this world be? Think about it. Where would this world be if God didn't put curtailment on such things? All right, here we go again. Who's the favorite? Joseph is. Again, these homes with more than one wives, they just have this constant problem between the wives, between the children. It's a constant thing. Well, Joseph is the favorite. And what happens? His brethren hate him. Now think about this. 10 of these are much older. Some of them are quite a bit older. Quite a bit older. And so we have these, the older brothers, looking down at this child, if you will, and saying, Father prefers you over any of us. Jealousy? Yes. Hatred? Yes. Very definitely hatred. Well, Joseph has a dream, and he's going to tell all of these about. Well, it doesn't take a whole lot of imagination for them to realize that they are showing obeisance to him. And with all of the enmity they have already, this is not a good thing. They just simply hate him all the more for this. Well, Joseph seems to have a little pride in all of this, however. He says, behold, lo, behold, when he tells them about it. Well, this means, look, look, look. He's excited. This dream. Well, what happens now? He tells them of the dream, but then another dream comes along. You would think that perhaps Joseph would have learned the first time, but he didn't. He has to tell of this dream also. But he also then tells his father at this time. And then the scripture says, but his father observed the saying. In other words, he's looking at it, he's listening to it. He's not happy with necessarily what is here, but he's listening. What can be involved in all of this? And the same idea, incidentally, is used of Mary in Luke 2:19 when she considered all the things that she was learning. Well, when you come down to it, though, these dreams really seem to fit into what Jacob had in mind for Joseph. He was the favorite son. It just may have been fitting into what he wanted him to do or to be able to do as far as the family is concerned. Well, later, Jacob sends Joseph out to find the brothers. Where are they? How are they doing? Sends him out to have him go out and look at them and see how they're doing and come back and make a report. It seems that Jacob trusts him, trusts his reports. Well, so he goes up to Shechem from Hebron. Now, this is not just a short walk. We're talking about 50 miles. Does not find his brothers. Asks somebody that's there, have you seen them? Yes, they have gone on now to Dothan. There's another 25 miles. So it's 75 miles out there that he's had to go. Now, that's quite a trek. That's a long walk. And so we've got a healthy young man on our hands here. But what do we have waiting for him? Evil hearts. Evil hearts now plan to kill him. And again, sin is a natural outgrowth of a bigamist home. There's what? Inner strife. We can compare this, can we not, to David's sons? Can we not compare this then also to Solomon's sons? Look, just you go all the way through the history of these people and you see all of the things that happened. You see that this was a constant problem when we had multiple wives and we had this sort of thing in the home. Well, it appears now that Reuben is going to come to the aid of Joseph. But really, when you think about it, it's just a compromise. He's not standing up and defending and saying that this is wrong. He's trying to meet evil now with craftiness. Trying to meet evil with craftiness. That just isn't going to work. It is not going to work. It may seem to work temporarily, but in the end, it never really, truly works. He should have taken a stand. He should have just said, no, we will not do this. He is blood of our blood, he is bone of our bone, and he should have put his foot down and said, no. But the man didn't do it. But what is his father going to say about him much later? Reuben, what? You are unstable as water. Unstable. You should have been solid. You should have been firm, but you are not. And we see it right here in what is happening. He should have taken a stand, but he did not. Well, Judah now comes forward. Do not slay him. Now, we were finally coming down to this. He is, as we said, our brother and our flesh. And this is a strong plea because it refers back to Abel and Cain. Now, Reuben was not present at the sale of Joseph. And he comes back and he says, where is the child? What shall I do? Whither shall I go? He's asking, shall we attempt a rescue? Shall I hasten home? Really, it comes down to complete bewilderment. What am I going to do? They send the coat to father. Let his mind come up with what happened. Let him figure out a way. This is a cruel way to treat their father. A very cruel way. They let him and his fears figure out what happened to the child. Actually, we know he was sold to these people, and then he's sold to Potiphar in Egypt. It says that Potiphar is a captain of the guard. In other words, he is a eunuch, and he's head of the slaughterers, is the idea. We're going to close there and come back in on chapter 38 in our next session. Read back a few chapters, read even to the end of the book now, but we're ready for the next period. See you then.